Can I interview you? Do you feel like over the last 5, 6 years, Yellow Springs has been changing?
We just moved here 4 years ago from New York. So the reason we moved here was because we had been visiting here for a while. And the atmosphere is unbelievable. People are unbelievable. It's just a friendly place to live. So we've enjoyed it. The kids growing up, they have a lot more freedom than they would have had in New York.
A lot of fun. I have a lot of fun here. This parade is so fun. I wish I could keep this banner because I love this parade. This is fun.
You know, some kids lately have been saying that there's not as many places to hang out as there used to be. And like they had benches on front of the shops and they're taking those away and stuff like that.
Well, I think that has to do with just progress. You got so many people coming in here on the weekend, there's hardly any place to walk, let alone to sit. So I just think somebody has to make plans to expand someplace, somewhere, so you can accommodate both the kids and the tourists.
Well, this has been a thing that's been going on here for years, ever since I've lived here, I think, that there's no good place for people to hang out. It used to be Bryan Center, but I think Bryan Center is kind of...
I would like to see the benches back, yes, I would, but not in front of this building.
I guess I would hope that there would be a relationship built up between the officers and the teenagers, that they don't mistrust the police.
I've been spending at least part of every day downtown for the past 3 years, I would say.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Bench.
And then this bench has been where we sit. It's almost like a staging area. Everyone, when they don't have anything to do or when they want to see other people, comes down to this bench, you sit around, drink coffee, talk to everybody that's around, and I don't know, just pass the time.
This specific area where the bench used to be really was one of the more important hubs for the youth, because this was the place everybody would gather. I mean, you want to go downtown and find people, you go right here.
It's a towny thing to sit on a bench. You hold the bench to the ground or else it'll float away.
There's a place for them to come and kind of show their worth to the town. We kind of run this bench and we let people know, like, you got some musicians coming up, you got people sitting here stenciling for the artists, you know, like you have other ones that are skateboarding, and you have other ones that just are talking about whatever.
But I noticed over this past summer, the police would come and talk to us, or Tom would walk by and shoot us a glare.
There was the prude people that, you know, would go around and wouldn't even ask just because, you know, they're scared of us for some reason. But
people seem to almost be afraid of all the kids hanging out here.
They would either like cross or like walk around in the street, and maybe those are the people that were complaining to Tom's, but like if they asked, we would move.
I'm from New Jersey, and why I like being in Yellow Springs so much is because you are allowed to loiter. In New Jersey or in towns similar to this, loitering is frowned upon. People, businesses usually will call the cops on you and just ask you to keep moving.
We were all sitting here, and a cop came up to us and was like, "So Tom's been complaining about you guys harassing his customers," and we're like, "No." He's like, "Well, they're saying people on this bench harass his customers." I was like, "Well, it wasn't us because we don't harass people that go into Tom's." And he's like, "Well, that doesn't matter. If Tom calls and complains to us again, we're gonna have to come here and arrest one of you guys." Like he didn't give. He was just like just like the whole like scapegoating thing again.
That comes from 90% of the times comes from merchants or somebody who was downtown that said, "Look, I had 2 bags of groceries and I had to go out and between parked cars and come back in," and they're pretty upset and miffed that the sidewalk was blocked and I couldn't get by. And
last October street fair, the streets were closed for cleaning me and a couple friends were standing up against the bushes there. We weren't blocking the sidewalk, but then two cops came up and cited two people that I know of for standing there. And it was after street fair when you know, the streets are packed. You can't even walk through. And these are two townies, like two people that I know went to school with, and they got cited.
Yeah. So it's complaint driven. We get the calls usually pretty immediately from merchants, and the merchant was the one who removed the bench from downtown. It wasn't a village bench, you know.
It was here when I left, and I came back a few months later, and the bench was gone, and so I immediately inquired about it. In fact, no, it wasn't even, I didn't even have to inquire about it. It was immediately brought up to me as soon as I sat down at that bench. I was told flat out that it was because teenagers were skateboarding and riding their bikes on it, and they were annoying some of the older people in this town to a point where they were complaining that they would stop doing their groceries here or heading over to the tavern if something wasn't done.
The bench being gone, that sucks. It sucks a lot, and I don't think it's fair that they should have to tell us that we need to go other places, and then at the same time kids are getting in trouble for being in other places.
The kids that are still in high school that would hang out down here a lot, they're like, I mean, look around, it's dead.
And the fact that the bench was moved isn't nearly as annoying as the reasons why it was moved.
I felt very excluded because that was known as kind of where the teenagers hung out after dark. Usually, like, it was diverse as in a bench in itself, but after dark, that was where the teenagers hung out. I mean, everyone knows that this is a tourist town, and that the tourists, when here, walk up and down these sidewalks until about 7 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock. At about 7, 8 o'clock, the tavern fills up, the gulch fills up, beaches fills up. And there is nothing else that the town supplies for the teenagers and the kids in this town. So that bench, after about 8 o'clock, was somewhere for teenagers to come hang out and hang out in public. I mean, everyone knew that. You'd always walk past them all the time. And it was kind of upsetting that was why they actually took the bench away. It wasn't in anybody's way, and a lot of people use that bench other than teenagers. So I really couldn't see the logic in getting rid of a bench that everyone used because it stopped one group from being able to use it at all.
Oh man, they've been taking away benches for years.
It's been a problem for decades, and kids still get in trouble for being downtown, and shop owners still complain and still take away everything, and kids still come downtown, and it's going to happen generation after generation.
When I first started coming downtown, it was always like hanging out. It was the bench in front of Coffee Cantata. Dino took it out, I'm pretty sure, when he took it over. He said he was afraid his window would break.
Over at the Senior Citizen Center, there was this yellow metal bench that we all sat on. That one they took away, and I guess they dumped it in some cemetery somewhere.
Yeah, Trevor spotted it in the graveyard on Fairfield Pike, and so he came and got me and Hank downtown, and we put it on top of Trevor's car, and we drove kind of slow and held it up there.
And a couple kids found it and brought it back, and they took it again.
And in fact, as I have spent some time talking to a few of the kids that kind of hang out downtown, trying to implant in them or getting them to buy into the idea of moving the hangout place from the, maybe the BP or the Glass Studio.
And then they moved down the street and to Bondia's and in front of there next to BP, and the cops kind of chased people away from there.
Over to the public parking lot over at the Caboose. There's a grassy area there. I believe there's a park bench there.
So they crossed the street, and they didn't really like that corner so much. So they crossed the street a little more, ended up at the Caboose.
And, at that location, they wouldn't cause any concern for any of the business people downtown.
That's like if you were a kid and you were down, or like a teenager and you were downtown, you were going to hang out at the Caboose.
Cops will park, in front of the post office, which is a clear view of that area, and they'll just sit there and watch people.
And then that little box appeared on the lights over there that everybody says is a camera, and I'm pretty sure is a camera. Yes. And the cops stopped doing that as soon as that box appeared.
It's not that we don't really target. It's not our intention.
Like the other day, I was downtown. There's a lot of it was around 11 o'clock at night. There's a lot of kids hanging out. They were on spring break, and I noticed that the police was circling, and each time they would ride by, they'd look at the crowd.
We get accused a lot of following or stalking's not the right word.
They'll stalk you. They'll go up Keith's Alley, come through here, then you'll see them go around that way, maybe pull into the parking lot, and it's not. It feels like they're trying to intimidate us.
But that's maybe how it feels to a younger person. It truly is just wanting people to get home safely, and it truly is the bottom line for us. And I understand how it could look different, that you see the cops circling, but the fact of the matter is they're circling kind of to keep an eye on things, make sure people get home safely. I mean, bad things do still happen in Yellow Springs.
Sometimes they'll just hang out for 20 minutes until curfew so they can kick everyone out, and then they make everyone who's under 18 leave.
A few months ago, when we had the hurricane in Ohio, all the power went out for like a couple days, and first night someone like broke into Speedway, so then they made a curfew of 9 o'clock for like the whole village. And so everyone, like all the young people and even like some old people, were sitting down here, and we all had musical instruments, and we're all playing music, dancing and singing. There was like some old guy with his drum and stuff, and the cops come up like, hey, it's curfew, and it was like 8:30, and we're like, we're just hanging out, having fun, playing music, and like we didn't want to move, and they started yelling at us and screaming at us, and then we started singing American Pie.
What did they?
Music died.
Later that night, we were hanging out in a downtown apartment, and we were, I think to my knowledge, in that apartment's property, on private property, in an alleyway, and the police came up and talked to us, pulled us all out of the alleyway, made us stand. They sort of lined us up against that wall, the front wall of Tom's Market. Officer Grody was there, and a few other officers, and Grody, his exact words, I think, were, "God damn it, you guys, we can't do this. If I see you again tomorrow night, I'm taking you right to jail." They were extremely aggressive. They said, "Walk home right now. Don't say anything." I was like, "Can I take my bicycle?" And she said, "Don't say anything. Just leave."
We don't want to hassle people. It's truly not fun. It really isn't.
They just seem upset that they even have to talk to us at all. They think that it should just be a given. We should be more mature. We should understand that we shouldn't stand here.
It makes me want to be like, fuck you. But this is my town too. You can't kick me out,
There's almost a culture of fear against kids because it's not very familiar to a lot of people in Ohio. It's like, oh, what is this? What's going on? A little nervous because these kids look very different than when I was a kid growing up.
I think it comes way back from all the trouble that people got into this year, like Edie getting arrested this year, because the police in the school district did nothing when there was such a problem in the high school. When people were doing cocaine in school, they didn't do anything. They waited until now, once the community saw that they didn't do anything. And now they're like, oh, shoot.
I think when Chief McKee and Chief Sampson, Chief Miller, I mean, that was kind of prior to Tim's murder. I think things were, I don't want to say not focused on, but I just don't believe that the other administrators knew to what degree drug trafficking had on the village. Not to the extent that probably was going on. Yeah, probably a little bit of being naive on my part. I'll take that hit, but
the change occurred during when Bush was chief, or during?
I think that's when it first started to occur, because Chief Bush, when Tim's body was found, was during Chief Bush's time here.
Well, future of Yellow Springs, first thing I'm seeing is I'm noticing a lot more people having a dislike for the police. In comparison to when I first got here, everyone's like, no, that's, Officer so-and-so. He grew up with, I grew up with him, and, his kids go to my kids' school. So now everyone's saying, hate those MFers, and, like, they always hassling. Like, I'm not even doing anything, and all I was doing is walking down the street. And they're assuming this and assuming that. And so I'm starting to find adults as well as teenagers have that aspect.
My friend was pulled over and the cop said he was taking a suspicious route. And that was the rationale for pulling him over.
Honestly, the only thing I'm scared of in Yellow Springs are the police